Yeah, okay.
Meaning the mainstream media is not who you think it is. The mainstream media truly leans right.
Maybe.
When you're
Wait. Is the mainstream media actually conservative? I mean, according to Mark Cuban, conservative is the mainstream now. Welcome back to the Sunrise Lounge, men. Here we explore one of the most important skills you can develop, and that is learning to think unbiased and independently. Whether you're a student, college student, young professional, or just looking to improve your mindset, here we debate and explore how to make tough thought choices that are true to you and then balances what really matters for you, which is your relationships and your values with a clear and open mind. So let's get to work. All right, now listen, Sunrise Lounge, I spent days researching this, putting the blocks and putting the pieces together so I didn't have a knee-jerk biased reaction, because my initial reaction was to look at Mark Cuban and be like, dude, what in the world? But it really piqued my interest, actually. And so I even asked good old ChatGPT to help with this one. And honestly, the results, it might surprise you. So look, it's time to put a theory to the test. I've got two numbers here that I want you to keep in mind: 5 and 135. And we're talking millions. Keep those in mind. And then by the end of this video, I want you to be able to jump down to the comments confidently and be able to say confidently whether Mark is right or wrong, and if the mainstream media is actually conservative. All right, so today's video is, man, I'm super excited about this one. All the ideas that we kind of worked through to see, let's test this theory. So we're going to actually watch the original clip, and it's super short. So we're going to watch that. And then we've got a ton of context we're going to talk about. We're going to go with ChatGPT research, and then we're going to look at a platform called Ground News. So when we're going through all of our segments here, we're going to use Ground News, and you'll see a pop-up score, which will be a Ground News lean score, which will show you whether a publication we're talking about leans left, leans right, leans liberal, leans conservative. So yeah, once we watch the main clip, we're going to work through some different points of research. We're going to look at podcast viewership numbers, main broadcast viewership numbers. We're going to look at YouTube subscriber counts. And then we have some other context clips from a really cool podcast I absolutely love from a really cool dude. And he's definitely a right leaner. So he's a right leaner. So let's get into it. Let's bring it up here. Here's the clip we were talking about. This is the clip, and this blew up on Twitter, on X, a few weeks ago, last week of September. So it's been a little bit now, but this is content that's I know it's just a fast-moving environment, but this is content that's absolutely worth exploring. Obviously, I'm making a really long and content-based video off of it because this is something we need to talk about. Is the mainstream media actually conservative? So roll the clip. Let's check this out.
Yeah, okay. Meaning the mainstream media is not who you think it is. The mainstream media truly leans right. Maybe. When you're Wait. So Sunrise Lounge, the fact that this just happens on CNBC, your initial reaction is to think, no. So I don't know about y'all, Sunrise Lounge, but growing up, the cultural perception and just the common accepted theory about this topic is that the mainstream media is liberal. It's left leaning. I mean, everyone knows that. I mean, you've got Fox News, of course. You've got maybe some others that are your big mainstream media outlets, but come on, it's liberal. Everyone knows the media is liberal, especially because the conservative media tells you that all the time. So so this is your first opportunity to get down in the comments. You know the captain will give you plenty of comment opportunities. So this is your first one. Get down in the comments and let me know what your perception was growing up. Is the mainstream media liberal or conservative according to kind of the cultural norms that you grew up with? But that's when this first caught my attention. So my initial reaction was to be like, no. Mark, come on, man. I mean, he's campaigning for Kamala Harris and all these other things. And, he's not a big fan of Donald Trump and says berating things about him. So it's like, well, yeah, the left side guy is definitely going to say that the mainstream media is actually conservative. So he's got this vested interest in, what his opinion is. And if you actually check out right here, I'll put the card. the video on misinformation, how to identify it. Something we talk about is vested interest and veracity. So it's something worth checking out. Go check it out. Watch other videos. And then while you're at it, hit the like button. If you like what you're hearing and you enjoy the video, like it, and then share it out. You don't have to put like some crazy cringy, like, oh my God, what's this YouTuber on your X or Facebook, but share it out with somebody. Text it to one of your friends, right? Because sharing helps the content get pushed out. So if you like what you have here and you want to support the Sunrise Lounge, sharing and like button is the best way to do it. Get down and comment, that kind of stuff. So, all right. When I initially saw this content and Mark was saying all this, and I saw all the reactions on X, and it was everything was true to what I thought, right? There's no way this is true. But then my initial reaction faded, and I thought, okay, my analytical mind started taking over. My think independently mind started taking over. I started thinking through the lens of the Sunrise Lounge, right? Not just as a content creator, but as a member of the Sunrise Lounge. I kept thinking, okay, let's actually check this out. This would be cool to talk about. So that's what we did. And the results might surprise you. Remember that number I told you to keep in mind a little while ago, 5 and 135? That's actually going to come into play here really, really soon. So, but the first thing that my initial question was, I went to ChatGPT to check this out. So let's transition over and let's check out ChatGPT. You're going to be interested in this. What I did is I went through ChatGPT and I asked, just generate a list of the top 30 mainstream media sources and their political leanings. So I'm not just going to read these off to you just randomly, because like that would be incredibly boring content and you would click away and not watch the rest of the video, and I wouldn't blame you. But more importantly, that doesn't help drive forward our story either. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through, you're going to see a lean score pop up from Ground News on your screen. And we're going to go through and see which of these that we've heard of, or at least that I've heard of. I feel like I'm pretty well experienced in media, and I've consumed a lot at 35 years old, right? So we'll see. Have I heard of these? And are they something that I'm cognizantly aware of, like culturally? So let's get into it. Number 1, New York Times. Yeah, we've heard of that one. Boom, check. Washington Post, definitely heard of that one. Boom, check. CNN, MSNBC, NBC News, CBS News, ABC News, Huffington Post, NPR, The Guardian, both the US and the UK version, Bloomberg, Vox, The Atlantic, Politico, Los Angeles Times, Time Magazine. All of these I've heard of, except maybe a couple. So we're at, I'll call it 18 out of 20 that I've heard of, right? So very, they're not like obscure. They're very mainstream, right? So let's look at the conservative leaning outlets with that in mind. Fox News, definitely. New York Post, I thought that was a tabloid, to be honest. Like, does anyone else think that was a tabloid? That was just me. The Wall Street Journal, obviously just the editorial section. Yep, heard of that. Newsmax, yep. Daily Wire, yep. Washington Examiner, yes. National Review, yes. Blaze, yes. The Federalist, I've got a big old copy back there of the Federalist Papers, and that's what I thought, the Federalist. I didn't know there was a publication, right? So that's the first one. That's one so far out of the first 9. Breitbart, definitely heard of that. Andrew Breitbart, RIP. One America News Network, like, what you'll have to cue the cricket soundtrack on that one. I have no clue. The Epic Times, really cool, but I don't know if I would consider them like mainstream. It's like a subscription service level news. I don't know. The American Conservative, no clue. Town Hall, I think it's an X channel, and maybe they're on YouTube. I mean, I'm sure I could look it up. Real Clear Politics, no clue. So haven't heard of that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll be fair. We'll call it 4 instead of 5. So out of 15, I've only heard of 11 of these. Whereas with these liberal leaning outlets, I've heard of a ton of these, like all of them except like 2. Right. So that was my initial reaction was, wow, okay, there are a lot of mainstream on both sides, but a lot of this conservative stuff doesn't really qualify, in my opinion, as mainstream. You can see the lean scores that popped up and what Ground News says that they look like. So the point of this right here was to look and see, okay, which of these outlets are actually mainstream and which way do they lean? And to be honest with you, the ones that are the most like significantly grounded in our culture that people really know, other than a handful like Fox News, Wall Street Journal, probably Daily Wire. I mean, most of your mainstream, at least legacy media, is liberal leaning, left leaning. So initially it looks like, hey, Mark, you're smoking some juice here, but wait. It's when you dive into viewership numbers, it's really the answer might surprise you. So let's check out our next segment here, where we're actually going to look at viewership numbers based off of Adweek, looking at Neilsen ratings data, which if anyone doesn't know, Neilsen is like the authority on viewership numbers, especially for mainstream broadcast media. So let's check it out. We're going to go through a publication called Adweek, which is an extremely highly reputable. It's one of the primary sources for data and research and analytics on media viewership. And they are actually citing a source that is the most reputable source on digital and classic media, TV, all viewership, which is Neilsen, which does nationally representative surveys and tracks viewership data, and they have for years. This is about as reputable as those sources could possibly be. This is where things got really interesting, or at least started to get interesting. So check this out. One thing we want to keep in mind here, this is super great context, is that we're going to see this age range. You'll see right down here, adults 25 to 54, and then a total viewers. So this is really this is the cultural hub right now for influence and the main center of culture. So this is why we're paying attention to that. That's what makes this stuff really, really interesting. So this is just for September 2024. We'll do numbers to look at the entire year of 2024 in comparison to that 135 million I talked about, and you'll see where we get that from. And then that's where things get really, really interesting. So check this out. Among total viewers, I'm not going to go through all these numbers because that would be super, super boring, but I'm going to highlight some stuff. Among total viewers, these are the top most viewed programs. Look at this. Boom. Fox News, Fox, all these Fox. Number 8 is MSNBC. We finally get something. That's not Fox. Fox, MSNBC, Fox, MSN. Look at this. All of these, 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the top 15. So 11 of them are Fox News. Who's mainstream now? Right? Like that's what's so crazy about this. Now look at among adults aged 25 to 54, all Fox. It's all Fox News. Number 15 is MSNBC. I mean, look at these numbers. Barely anyone in September comparatively. Here's where I get the 5 million from. You total these up between Fox News, MSN, and CNN. Your total viewership in September 2024 for Fox News was almost double both MSNBC and CNN. These are the 3 classic mainstream media broadcast outlets. But still, it's a total of 5 million that watched cable news in September 2024. And then among age range 25 to 54, which we're talking about, the primary constituent group we're thinking about, I mean, not even a million in September 2024. So that's where that 5 million comes from. A lot of this is the older age range plus 55, right? Plus 55, which is crazy. So it's old people watching primetime cable news, 5 million. Okay, Captain, get to the number. Why is that 5 million shocking? Well, let me show you. But before we get to this information, here's something that we have to talk about. I had Google's AI assistant do a aggregation of data. I asked it, what's podcast viewership as of September 2024? And the number that it generated, that's where it comes in. That's 135 million. 135 million. Wow. Is that not crazy? 135 million people subscribed and listening to podcasts, but we still call Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN the mainstream. Where does that perception come from? The idea that the mainstream legacy media is still the mainstream, even though obviously the numbers aren't bearing that out, is because they have the level of veracity and authority and long tenured track record of being the primary source for the news. So they're established as like the experts. They're the primary source. Whereas even if a show like the Joe Rogan podcast just on YouTube has multi-millions of subscribers, he's still just Joe Rogan with still just a mic in a studio and just some random guy with a podcast compared to these like legit syndicated, fully sourced out, established, long-running, long-term existing mainstream media outlets. That's why it's so important to hear this term and analyze this term, legacy media. But I think that doesn't tell the whole story. The question really doesn't become whether mainstream media is conservative or not. It really becomes, what is mainstream media? These are the official Spotify top 10 numbers. Check this out. This is really interesting. Joe Rogan Experience, you may have your different opinions on whether he leans left or leans right. I think he's at least centrist at this point, has moved towards that and has moved towards mildly right side, like classical right side. Theo Vaughn probably would list him as as conservative or right-leaning central. So these two, right-leaning central, probably. Tucker Carlson, 100% right. Like 100% right. Sean Ryan Show, a major inspiration, and we're going to see a clip from the Sean Ryan Show here in a minute at the end of the episode, but definitely right side. Call her daddy, left side. Rotten Mango, no idea. And our first true crime podcast, Crime Junkie, all hail the crime, the true crime podcast. It's number 7, not even in the top 5. The first real liberal one we know for sure is liberal, leftist, whatever, is the New York Times, The Daily Podcast. And then it kind of goes down from there. I mean, listen, most of these are right-leaning or centrist or have nothing to do with any of that at all, right? So if you're thinking about podcasts and other forms of media that we're looking at, there's proof out there with the numbers and the ratings and subscriber counts and the content levels that you start to think maybe he's right. Now we're at the point, I've got one more clip to show you, but now we're at the point where can you get down in the comments confidently and say whether you think the mainstream media, including legacy media and all other formats, is actually conservative and leans conservative or is heavily conservative, or if it isn't. And then does that take away that rebellious kind of oppressor versus oppressed thing that the right side loves to have, the alt-right, the new right, the conservative right, the classic right? They love to have that, especially with the media. They want the media to be liberal. They want the media to be leftist because it gives them a snake's head to cut off. It gives them this they can be the anti-hero. They can be the voice of truth and the voice of the underground, the voice of the grassroots and the people, and not the crazy big like Wayland Corporation from Blade Runner, right? Like you don't have this massive megacorp conglomerate that has like this conspiracy of what they push and what they promote and what stories that they put out there and how deeply liberal it is. Man, that starts to really erode pretty quickly when you take a step back and look at all forms of consumable media and what's actually mainstream now versus maybe what was mainstream a decade ago or longer ago. We still maybe consider it's now the legacy media. But where the problem comes in for conservative is the fact that they don't want the mainstream media to be considered conservative or there to be a change in the perception of what mainstream is versus what isn't mainstream. And why is that? Because they are absolutely playing into the oppressor, truth teller, the V for Vendetta, we're the resistance, we're the underground. They're playing into that narrative by saying, yeah, they love the media lies. I mean, think of a guy like Sean Hannity, right? One of the primary personalities in conservative media, if not the main dude for at least legacy broadcast mainstream media. And he constantly says the media as if he's not a part of it, which is a crazy perspective when you really think about it empirically and objectively. But his whole thing is that the media lies, the media lies, media lies. But that's just that legacy media. So while we're redefining what mainstream is, the results really start to surprise you. It paints a different picture. And it's an interesting concept to think about. We're all about thinking independently. Do I want the media to be liberal? Me personally, the captain, do I want the media to be liberal? I still think a lot of it is. I think there's still that veracity that comes from CNN and MSNBC and other main primary legacy sources of media that has that weight and gravitas to their opinion. So I think they drive a lot of the narrative that gets put out there among all the other content creators and all the other non-legacy outlets for media. But outside of that, I think this has actually changed my opinion, to be honest, that I think the mainstream media does lean more conservative when considering all forms of consumable media that's actually being consumed by ages 25 to 54. The numbers bear it out, and just basic anecdotal research. This is not academic level. This is me typing away on a computer, spending time thinking through this and how can I research this effectively and really leaning into that. But at the end of the day, it's me just like looking at subscriber counts and numbers. This is high level data that anyone can access, and it changes the story for what we may think about what Mark Cuban said at the beginning. Is the mainstream media actually conservative? All right, now, this leads into our next video you'll see next time, and this is a very, very important question. So check this out. This that I'm going to bring up is a clip from the Sean Ryan Show, and this is a former Fox News anchor, Megyn Kelly, and so she is definitely decidedly right, and this is not a conversation about who Megyn Kelly is and what her credentials are, but this is someone that definitely has an opinion that is valid. And so this is actually a really interesting conversation that's being had about the question, are we seeing the end of the mainstream media? Man, that is a question we are going to dive into for our next episode. So, as we lead out, I want you to check out this clip of what Megyn Kelly thinks about mainstream media and is it dying?
So the media lies, and in
There it is.
particular, they lie about Republicans.
There it is.
Certainly anyone who's a MAGA Republican.
I mean, is this the end of mainstream media? Are we seeing its demise right now?
Yes. We're living in the end times for corporate media, I guess we'll call it. They're not mainstream. Is it mainstream to go out there every day and say that guys should be allowed to punch women in the face at the Olympics and pretend they're women? That's not mainstream. 70% more, really, but 70% of the Americans polled say they don't want it. They don't want men and women's sports or boys and girls sports. That's not mainstream. You and I are the mainstream. They're not. Is it mainstream to say open the borders and give amnesty to them all? I hate that term because it's a misnomer.
Oh, there it is. That is such a great point that actually reinforces the original clip and that original knee-jerk reaction of everyone saying, no, Mark Cuban is crazy. He's campaigning for this crazy liberal, like Democrat communist person. And so there's no way, like, come on, dude, it's crazy. But when you really think about it, when you really look at it, the numbers have bared it out. This opinion from a very well-informed, very, very well-known, and very critically thinking person, and a person that's been in the mainstream, is one of the main anchors for Fox News, one of the main content creators and personalities for Fox News, is saying that no, that legacy media, that corporate media is not the mainstream. Sunrise Lounge, it's time to start redefining legacy media and if it's conservative or not. But how does this help you? How do you walk away from this? The ultimate goal of sharing this story is to help us in the Sunrise Lounge stay true to that challenge of thinking independently and understanding that, yes, there are narratives that get pushed, but it's not just this crazy conglomerate of super mega corp leftist liberals pushing this agenda. Both sides have a story. And so what gets covered and what gets put out there in the culture has a lot to do with all the media and the actual reputable and influential media that's out there. And a lot of it is leaning conservative. So the question for our next episode is the mainstream media dying? Is it really dying? Or is it just shifting? Is it shifting where its central locus of influence is? And we're going to examine where leftist, liberal, cultural Marxist ideas are getting into the culture. If it's not the media, where's it all coming from? Where's this cultural leftism coming from? Why do 25% of Gen Z identify as queer, as LGBTQ? That's like an astronomical number compared to all previous generations and how they identified. Maybe they're just more out and more comfortable with being out. And that's not just the only question, not queer theory, but everything. This cultural Marxism, critical race theory, DEI, all this stuff. Where's it coming from? If the leftist media is not the mainstream anymore and it's just this legacy, where's that coming from? We're going to explore that. I have a solution for you. I have a source for you. You are not going to want to miss that. So that's it for now. We are done and dusted. Man, it is a crisp salute and a firm handshake from the captain. Thank you for joining the Sunrise Lounge. If you're new here, hit the like button, share it out, get down in the comments, and I'll respond to any comments that come down there. And then, of course, hit the subscribe button if it's for you. And if you made it this far and absolutely hated everything about it and you hate watch this far, thanks for making it this far, first of all. But get down in the comments and at least tell me why, or find me on X, follow the Sunrise Lounge on X and tell me why there. I don't care. Just figure out a way to make it worth your while that you sit here and hate watch the entire time. So either way, whether you loved it or hated it, thank you for watching this far. Dad advice: black coffee. It's the only way to drink coffee. Anything else isn't coffee. Doesn't count. That's dad advice. Get off my lawn. And as true to the theme of the Sunrise Lounge and the culture of the Sunrise Lounge, you got to stay smart. So pull up your hood, stay smart, and I will see you on the next video.